Okay, going live. Oh, so here we go. Here we go. This is great to see you here. Yeah, hopefully this will, having restarted all of such a pain. My gosh, I still sound like a robot. And the audio goes. Oh my god. Yeah, audio issues are the same. Oh, god. Hey. Yes, I'm gonna let you know we're having this right here. Issues going to help out with. So I select the issue, microphone. It's all. It's impossible to use, not possible machine. Microphone. Wonky. Cutting out. No matter. It is. Yeah. I mean, not that StreamYard's actually really going to do. Fine. Oh man, I don't even know subtitles would thing because of whatever's happening with the inputs. Bronsros fighting the Pardal. That's a good prompt. I don't know if I can help with that. Do you have another outlet on your computer you can play? I can try. Let's see here. ISO, good to have you back. Hannah, good to have you back. John as well. Mike. Let's see here. Oh, this is sounding slightly better now this time around. Was all that was missing was just a different port? I guess it was. Wow. Arts, congratulations. You win a prize or something, because I would never have guessed that it was changing up that port. Wow. Okay, then. Well, we can finally say that we can get going. Woohoo! All right. Well, so with that finally, oh man, with that embarrassment there out of the way, yo Lars, I'm the only subscriber watching live from the middle of the northeast desert. Whoop. In the middle of service ruins, and I salute you. I'm saluting you right now with an Air Force salute for that. Which, if anyone wants to know, this is actually something. Fun fact, I actually incorporated this into one of my upcoming books, the different style of salutes depending on which service you're in the military, your salute will indeed be different, where you're expected to put your hand and also the angle of your hand. When I was there was a time that I actually was going to join the military, and then I actually was given an exemption because my feet are reconstructed. That's a whole story. I was thinking of going to the Air Force. My dad is Navy, and so my dad was like, "You're going to have to learn how to salute differently," because my dad does his salutes with the hand tilted in a completely different angle than what you're supposed to do when you're in the Air Force, where you tilt your hand as if it's like a wing, and you put it up either to the brim of your hat, or if you're like me and you're wearing glasses, and you have to then put it up to the brim of your glasses, all depending on what you're wearing. It's an interesting little thing. Okay, then. So I'm a conscript, so technically saluting me is a national crime. Well, that sucks. You gotta respect the conscripts. So yeah, I have a faulty outlet in my computer too. Usually it's just my keyboard that stutters. So that didn't cross my mind as the issue. Good job, Arts. Yes, Arts. Thank you so much for that. Here in Brazil, we have 3 salutes: civil, soldier, and marshal. Civil agents are expected to salute, but aren't expected to salute, but should do it from the lines of their eyes. Soldiers are mandatory and for 4 seconds, and marshals aren't mandated to salute. Highest rank for real. But if they do, the salute must last 2 seconds. Who is clocking these salutes? All right, so let me lay out some of the stuff that I wish to talk about for tonight. Obviously, Deltarune being one of the big ones, since we finally have some encouraging news about when the next couple of chapters of Deltarune are going to drop. And given the stuff that Toby Fox has released in his most recent letter update, I think that there's plenty of stuff to now speculate about. Time to get that hype train going, because the next chapter will probably drop either the end of October or sometime in the middle of November, is my guess, all depending on how fast the translation into Japanese goes, because it's right now with the translators, and they're doing their final bit. There's also just a final few technical things that are being worked on that, as Toby said, are completely out of his control, but he expects it'll take about a month-ish or so before it all goes through. So that means time to get that hype train up and going for real. No more guessing. On top of that, it would actually be really good as a segue to lead us into our writing lesson for tonight, which is going to be about building tension. And then, of course, Glitch just dropped the teaser trailer for the Amazing Digital Circus episode 3, which is going to be fantastic by the looks of it. It looks as though it's giving me massive episode home vibes from Murder Drones. Is totally what I'm getting from this upcoming episode, at least based on the trailer. Plus, we're getting more of Zooble, which I think will make a lot of people happy. And we finally get to know the story behind why Kinger has a shotgun, which was given to us months ago. I can smell the existential crisis manifesting. We are eating good this year. Oh, we absolutely are. And then, of course, Godspeed has got some good news potentially going down. I actually commented on Olin Rogers' post saying that I would actually explode if it's revealed, because he hasn't yet revealed which studio is working with. But I'm like, if you're working with Glitch, like, I will explode. I honestly don't think he's working with Glitch, just because Glitch has got so much already on their plate. They only have a crew of around 50 animators. And they are a studio outside of the United States, but never say never, because Olin was poking around in all different kinds of places, and I'm very glad that he did not sell out to Amazon, because unless you are a force of nature like the people over at Critical Role, you don't get to just simply walk on over into Amazon, present a project, and then have complete autonomy to do what you want to do. Normally Amazon completely takes control of whatever project is presented to them, and that's how we get the ridiculous adaptation for the Wheel of Time. That's how we get the horrible work that's been done with Rings of Power. And so I'm really glad that Olin's like, nope, I want to make this my story. I know what it's like when Hollywood steals my ideas and then closes them down. And even though Amazon says, well, we're not really part of Hollywood, they basically are. They're trying to exert themselves onto the Hollywood model and be like, hey, we're the new kids in town and we get to set the rules. And oh boy, it's yeah, it's rough. Art says, yeah, unless you're Ryan Reynolds or Henry Cavill, forget it. Absolutely. And Henry Cavill's actually had to really fight behind the scenes to get Warhammer 40K going because what's her bucket over at Amazon? Her name immediately just escaped me right now. She basically, Jennifer Sulky, that's her name. Jennifer Sulky took control of the Rings of Power and Wheel of Time and completely rearranged everything that was going on behind the scenes, got rid of all the people who were really excited to that project, and then replaced them with her own acolytes. And like, look, the whole woke thing aside, they're just bad stories. Like when I talk about Rings of Power in my reviews, I don't even talk about anything deemed quote unquote woke or diverse or inclusive, all of these hot button topics, because that's just stupid. Instead, let's actually talk about the story, because it doesn't matter who's in the story so long as the story is written well. You can do amazing things with just a little. Even with big mandates to operate under. But the writing just sucks. And that comes down to Jennifer Sulky putting her own stupid people into these projects and trying to overthrow them. So Henry Cavill's trying to fight the good fight to make Warhammer 40K be exactly what it needs to be. And I love the story of what happened behind the scenes of how Ryan Reynolds basically went to war against the MCU for over a year to get Deadpool and Wolverine made. It is amazing. Arts, yes, exactly. It's fine to be diverse. You just need to be competent at your job. I don't care what your background is, what your religion is, what you look like, what your sexuality is. I'm a normal person who can get along with just about anybody. Who cares what you look like or where you come from or how you speak? That's just part of who you are. That makes you beautiful. What matters is that if I'm expecting you to make a good story, we need to talk about how you're going to make a good story and not just serve up a bunch of crap. That is the real issue. All right. So let me see. Let me catch up with some stuff. Speaking of Hollywood, Disney just had a new creative director. I heard about that. I'm Omega. I just heard about that today. They got rid of their old creative director, and they've demoted her to working on Frozen 3 and 4, which immediately I actually really like the first Frozen movie, but I have no hopes now for Frozen 3 and 4 based on that. Bruins, I'm writing a fanfic. I say it with because it's technically not a fiction, but a guts and black powder, and I can say Glitch stole my environment idea from chapter 5. How does a small team get things done so quick? Asked Hannah Heaven. The answer is scheduling. You can actually do a lot with just a little bit of time in the day if you set really good goals and you know what you're doing with your scheduling. It's all goal-oriented. It's all time management. If you know how to manage your time, you can do incredible things with limited resources and with a limited time. That was something that I was taught back in high school when I studied video production. There were so many massive projects that we were given that we were expected to do with just a handful of hours, and students did it by learning how to budget their time. So if you can learn how to budget your time, there's some amazing things that you can do, and that it's a constant struggle. I'm always like every day I'm always thinking about what time do I have, what obligations do I have, what things can I do creatively and with how much time. I need to know what can I reasonably do within so many hours. There's no way that I can write 5,000 words a day, edit an entire video, and do drawings with 3 hours of time. That's impossible. You can't, at least with my skill set and with my human capabilities, impossible. So you learn to evaluate yourself and you learn to budget your time. Art says, I'm looking forward to Zootopia 2, to be honest. Actually, I am as well. I really, really enjoyed the first Zootopia. And I like the idea of making a serpent the villain. That'll be fun to see. Rubens loves V. I love V too, Rubens. Enjoy writing your story to help V. Mimicast, why do these Hollywood executives deliberately try to make really bad stories? Are they just doing it on purpose? Don't they realize they'll make double the moolah with a great written story? Like Mimic, I would love to know what's going on in their heads. The best that I've been able to learn from what other people have said is that many producers these days think that they're really great writers, but they don't believe that they have the time to devote to writing these great stories. And so they hire writers to do these amazing movies and television shows. And then the producers are all like, well, I have this really great idea. Here's a note. I want you to incorporate it. And please make it exactly as I say that you should, because I'm a genius. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And because they are the ones who have all the money and have all the power over the creation of any project, then the writers have to do what they're told to do. And a lot of the writers who actually would stand up for themselves and say, no, Mr. or Mrs. Producer, this is actually a horrible idea. This derails the entire story. They were fired because they were speaking back to these producers who, again, fancy themselves as really great creators when they're not. And so it's just, it's such a mess. It's such a mess. Clearly, Hollywood's just playing a prank on us again. Right, guys? Right? Yeah, right. Yeah, it's mostly not creatives as normal people, says TV account. I don't know about that. I mean, how should I say it? And I've heard all different kinds of stories about how the creatives are being replaced with people who aren't really all that creative. TV account, it's uncomplicated. I've wondered about actually like doing a concentrated stream one of these days on just like talking about why stories have been falling apart recently. And no, it's not the culture war stuff that everyone always makes it out to be. There's way more going on. And also kind of make that chance to trash George R. R. Martin. What do you think about Ice-E being teased as this powerful nightmare cryptic that can exist wherever his face is plastered on? Adam Wood, that is a great question to get us finally back on track to talk about Deltarune. So what do I think about this particular theory right here? The moment that I saw that, I was like, hold on a second here. Hold on a second. This could work, and yet it feels like a red herring. So let me first explain why I feel like this is a red herring, and then I'll explain why I think that this could actually work. So a red herring is a literary device that's used to completely mislead the audience, to mislead the reader, or in this case, mislead the player who's thinking like, oh, I just found this thing there's this evidence in Noel's story. And there's things happening as well within the game, if you're paying very close attention, where it seems as though the people over at Ice-E's are a little bit off the rocker. And no, we're not just talking about Azrael's stoner dude friend. Like, there seems to definitely be something shady going on over at that restaurant. And so like it makes good sense that in this game, which is teasing us with mysteries, that we would then say, okay, then we need to look around hometown. There's got to be someone else here. There's of course the theory that Chris is the knight who's been going around opening up these portals. I still don't think that Chris is the knight, despite us seeing that Chris opened up one of the portals. I'll get around to that a little bit later. So there's all these possibilities of other people knowing about the dark world. We know from one of the drawings from Father Alvin, back when he was a kid, that there were several other people who also went into the dark world with him, which then means that there should be adults in hometown who know about the dark world. So therefore, there has to be someone who could open up these dark portals. And Ice-E's, the guy behind it all, could be that person, whether it be the owner or whether it's the mascot, could easily be that person who's then going around opening up portals. The reason why I feel like this is a red herring is because we get this information primarily through Noel, And Noelle is a fraidy cat. Noelle is scared of everything, other than Susie, which is one of the reasons why she latches onto Susie, because Susie makes her feel comfortable. Susie feels to her a lot like her big sister Des, who can just kind of push away the terror. And so that's part of Noelle's crush on Susie. And so her being scared of the Ices guy is something that kind of makes sense for her, just being paranoid, being a little bit scary. And then again, let's just be frank here. Everyone over at Ices seems really, really weird. And so it's a bunch of conjecture that makes it look like Ices could be the knight going around opening up portals, could be this horrible monster that we're dealing with. But I think that might be all spun off more. Thinking from the point of view that this could be a red herring, this could all just be conjecture, a red herring, something that Toby Fox threw to us, thinking like, ha ha ha, I know that my fans are going to completely over speculate on who this guy is, and they're going to just go so far afield they won't know what hit them when I then reveal the truth. So that's the red herring approach. But if we take it as that he could actually be the knight, or at least someone who, like the knight, is opening up the portals, again, because we know that someone around the same age as Father Alvin has gone to the Dark World, should know about how to open up the portals. And in Chapter 1, when you first go to the Dark World, you see the remains of a great cataclysmic event that destroyed part of the Dark World, where all of those bleeding, darkened eyes are, where everything has just been ruined, where there's just chalk dust everywhere, and those old scribblings and markings. Something has happened. Someone has experienced something similar to the angel's heaven and to the roaring, and could very well be one of Father Alvin's friends is one of those people who knows about all of this. And one of Father Alvin's friends could be Ices. Ruben says, I think we went a bit too far on other topics. Oh no, we are right here. We're talking about Deltarune right now. Someone be sus. Arts, I'm of the opinion that the knight is manipulating other lightners to open dark worlds. And I think that could very well be the case there, Arts. But to quickly answer TV Account's question, is today's lesson still here? TV Account, yes, we will do the lesson once we've talked some Deltarune. I have it already queued up. In fact, I can quickly show you it right here. Add that onto stage. Boom. How to build tension. This will be our lesson. Say we've already, behind the scenes, I've talked it over with the rest of the harem about what kinds of lessons we'd want to do based on people's suggestions. And we will have some lessons in a couple of weeks where Camille and I will tag team, and hopefully we'll have other people on as well to talk about making relationships central to a plot and stuff like that. But tonight, our lesson is on building tension. Darkest Daydreams, what did I miss? You've just missed a lot of watching, a lot of talking and speculation. Recently on whether or not Ice-Ease is the weird, dangerous cryptid who might be plaguing hometown. So there you are. Don't worry, TV Account. We will have the lesson tonight. All right. But so came back to this. So Art saying that you're of the opinion that the knight is manipulating other lightners to open dark worlds. So if you want to elaborate further in the chat, please go ahead and do so. But I think that there is merit to that speculation, because think about what happened with Queen and with Noelle and with Birdley and now with Susie and Chris. There was the suggestion about whether or not someone could actually open up another fountain. Now then, what Queen witnessed, according to her in Chapter 2, was that the knight came, stretched out their hand, and tore open the new fountain, granting life and power to the cyber world. And Queen, working as is her function, because she's about fulfilling the needs of other people, We learned this earlier on where she has everyone's internet search history. And based on their internet search history, she then tries to create rooms and experiences for these people to help them feel satisfied. Birdley wants to be the hero because he's obviously not. He's trying to live up to this facade. And so she gives him the chance to be the hero, even if she doesn't really like him all that much, because she's like Birdley and whatnot. But sorry, I suddenly got derailed because I saw a lot of fun things just suddenly popping up right there into the chats. Don't look at the chat while talking, Lars. You'll get distracted. Squirrel. Queen created an opportunity for Birdley to be the hero. Queen is trying to be a mother to Noelle because Noelle is lacking parents. She wants her mother. She's got her father, but her father's probably terminally ill, so she desperately needs her mother. Hey, Rubens, great to have you here. You got to go out scouting. Safe travels, my dude. Take care. So Queen is trying to be a mother to Noelle, and then again when Ralsei and Susie and Chris are taken captive, the rooms that Susie and Chris are put into are there to basically entertain them, to keep them fulfilled and happy while she goes about bringing the dark world on over to the light world, all for Noelle's benefits and for Ralsei, because Ralsei as a Darkener is there to serve the Lighteners. He's made into a butler. So as far as Queen was concerned, Queen believed that by following suit. So I say all this because Queen realized that if she could create another dark fountain and allow herself to get into the light world, that she could then fully fulfill what she's supposed to do as a Darkener, which is to understand people and give them what she thinks they need to be their happiest and best selves. So that's what Queen was trying to do. And then Ralsei's like smacks that down. It's like, no, we can't actually do this, because if we continue to create dark fountains and disrupt the balance between the light world and the dark world, we will cause the roaring to happen. And both worlds will be effectively wiped out in the process. And so even though Birdley and Noelle and Susie, and to a certain degree Chris, all have reason to open up these dark fountains, to merge these worlds together, we just said we know now that that's the wrong thing to do. However, because they still have that desire, because the dark world does help them to fulfill certain needs and desires, then there is a chance to still manipulate them. And as we see at the end of chapter 2, Susie, even though she knows it's the wrong thing to open up another dark fountain, is talking with Chris about bringing Ralsei and Lancer on over into the light world and all the fun that everyone could have. So Susie can be manipulated, which probably leads to Chris being manipulated. So there's a very good chance that whoever the knight is someone who just has to cause enough mischief and present enough possibility through the dark worlds to manipulate these teenagers to, even though they know this is the wrong thing to do, to open up more dark fountains. So I feel like there's some merits to what you're speculating with right there, Arts. So popping up over here. So Mike says the dark worlds are too fun for the Lighteners to see it as dangerous yet. Mike, absolutely, because the dark worlds just they provide such a fantastic adventure, and the characters come out on the other end the better, so long as you play the pacifist route. That why not continue to go on these dark world adventures? Hooray! Art says Queen highlighted Chris, Susie, and Noelle in her examples of Lighteners who could open dark worlds. I'm thinking Toby was telling us, hey, these are the people who did it already. Oh, so Susie in chapter 1, since she came in late, Noelle in chapter 2, since she was already in the dark world, and Chris after Susie got there, because Chris opens up the dark world that we're going to go into for chapter 3. So who benefits from the fountains in chapter 1? Susie. Who benefits in chapter 2? Noelle. Who will benefit hopefully in chapter 3? Maybe it's Chris, or at least Chris's family, I would add right there. So where you're going with right here, Arts, like I can see this, that everyone somehow opened up the fountain. The one thing is this, that we can definitely see how Chris opened up the fountain. The one fly, the fly in the ointment for this particular speculation is, how did Susie and Noelle open up the other two dark fountains if this is also entirely new to them? Now that I think there is an answer for it, and it comes down to if Chris isn't the only one who is being possessed, because we know that possession is absolutely a thing within the game of Deltarune, because we as the player control Chris. But we control Chris through a pact that's been made with Gaster. So the potential possession over Susie and Noelle is something that, if that is indeed the case, we don't yet have the world building knowledge for it to justify that that's the case. So Art says that the knight temporarily possessed them, and that would most likely be the case if your theory is correct, Arts. And so the one thing that we're missing to really bring this theory completely together and say that this is a truly viable option is that we're just missing the information of how the knight can possess individuals without them knowing about it, or without having what we know to be a contract like what Gaster has with us as the player, and that he has obviously created with Chris. And we can definitely speculate that whatever went down that has allowed us as the player to control Chris is something that goes back to whatever happened in the woods, whatever happened at the bunker, when everything went down with Azrael, Noelle, Chris, and Des. And it's very likely also the night that Des went missing. So, at least that's speculation on my part, but I'm pretty confident in saying that Des went missing on the night that things happened in the bunker in the woods that Azrael rescued Chris and Noelle from, and that ever since then, Chris has acted weird, which implies then that Gaster and the player have had some sort of influence over Chris ever since that time. And that's also when the Dreamer and Holiday families began drifting apart. So I think that we're going to get some information about what actually happened in Chapter 3, because this is a chapter that's taking place in the Dreamer house. So with Toriel in the mix. So this is going to be very interesting to see. The real Noelle from Deltarune has showed up. Hey, Noelle, great to have you here. What do you think of what your parts might potentially be in chapters 3 and 4? Art says that, and they did it through them without them knowing. So again, come back to possession. Think of it like sleepwalking in a way. I assume as long as it's someone in hometown, the knight can snatch them temporarily. But the fly, like you said, is how exactly. That's the big question. And Chris, spelled backwards, is risk. That'd be Kisser. Chris and his friends took a lot of risks in the game. Mind blown. Well, you could say that Chris is an anagram for risk. That'd be the way to go. Chris is risk, Susie is issue. Ooh, Mike just came in hitting hard. So the real Noelle says maybe Caddy and Jonkington will be dreaming too. Yes, because thanks to Deltarune Chapter 2, we saw that 3 of the rooms that were set aside by Queen, one was for Azrael, one was for Jockington, one is for Caddy. This is this is exciting. Now here's the thing: it's Caddy's older sister, Caddy's room that was there. So thinking about the idea of issues, there are definitely some problems throughout Hometown that need to be addressed. And so yeah, Caddy and Bratty, that is one of the big problems, because Caddy and Bratty from Undertale were best friends, but here in Deltarune they aren't. And it's pretty clear that both of them also had massive crushes on Azrael, which probably is one of those things that led to them not getting along with each other. And so I believe that part of, because there's so many problems within Hometown that need to be resolved. That's part of Toby's posted goal for the entire game, that we're supposed to become friends with everyone. That part of that is going to be resolving the conflict between Caddy and Bratty and bringing them together. And most likely, not just simply disliking each other, but I think that actually comes down to the fact that they both had crushes on Azrael, and Bratty was upset that Caddy got to go with Azrael to the dance, where she then spilled punch all over him. And whatever happened there has got to be resolved. Will it be resolved in chapter 3 or chapter 4? I don't think so. If it is, awesome. Plot progression. But we are definitely going to get more into the lives of Jockington and Caddy. I don't think it's going to happen in chapter 3, because chapter 3 is going to be focused so much on what's happening with the Dreamer family. I will be honestly shocked. If we get Caddy and Jockington in chapter 3. I think they're going to show up in chapter 4. Definitely by chapter 4. And that their issues, their stories will then be central to the events of chapter 4. That is my guess. If they do become central in some kind of way in chapter 3, that would be fascinating to me. Because I'm now wondering, how would they end up in this particular Dark World? So if you guys have any suggestions, if you guys have any guesses on how Jockington and Caddy might play into chapter 3's main storyline, I'd love to hear it from you guys, because I'll be honest, I'm kind of drawing a blank. I'd have to like really sit down and think, okay, what little details might have been teased out in Chris's personal life that could introduce them in to chapter 3. So if you guys have any ideas, I'd love to hear it. Let me quickly scroll up right here. Art says, Jockington, I could see opening a portal. Caddy would just do it for fun. LOL, Caddy is an occult fan after all. Yes, the occult stuff with Caddy is going to be nuts when we get to it. I'm so excited for that. And the shipping wars of all of the different pairings within Deltarune, this is actually one of the reasons why I feel like Caddy and Noelle might actually end up together more so than Noelle and Susie, is because we get a hint that Caddy likes Noelle. Noelle has already been studying some occult stuff with Caddy, probably either to communicate with Des or to try to overcome her fears. And Caddy seems very observant into Noelle's life. There's a very good chance that Caddy could be the kind of friend that Noelle needs to start addressing some of these issues. And we'll just have to see how that plays out. He says, oh, wow, that's insane. I never knew that. They're all connected. Caddy and Chris studied the occult at one point. Yep, again, they definitely did that. And I'd love to know exactly what Chris... Actually, I think I know what Chris was trying to learn by studying the occult. Probably trying to learn how to get rid of possession is most likely what Chris was trying to learn by working with Caddy. The real Noelle says Azrael maybe will come back from college to get into Chris and Susie's crazy dreams, like how me and Birdley joined. I think that that's going to happen. Oof. Definitely by chapter 7. This is something that I've thought about multiple times. Like, what exactly are we getting into in later chapters? So let's see here. Chapter 1 was all about becoming friends with Susie. Chapter 2 was learning more about Noelle and Birdley and reconciling with Birdley and starting to become friends with Noelle and patching up the relationship between Chris and Noelle. Chapter 3 seems to be geared more towards the Dreamers, so beginning to patch up issues with the Dreamer family. Then chapter 4 will definitely be Jockington and Caddy at the latest. This then leaves within the classroom, because we're supposed to become friends with everyone in the classroom. We then have still Snowy, Monster Kid, and Temmie left over. And so they could easily then be chapters 5 and 6, which would then leave Azrael for chapter 7. However, I almost feel like we'd be cheated of Azrael if we had to wait all the way until the 7th chapter to finally meet him. I think we might meet him at the very end of chapter 6. Is what I am guessing. That is my guess. Gilgamesh says chapter 4 Mogs, chapter 3. Oi, Mogde. Art says, you think maybe we'll get a revelation on Susie's home life in chapter 3? I think that we're going to get some clues. I would love to get a full-on revelation of what's really been happening in Susie's life. I think that would really help to like open things up between her and Chris even more, and give Susie a chance for some greater character development. Like, she's been amazing. Susie is basically the main character of the story when you stop to think about it, because she is the one who's in the spotlight, who has really changed the most. As far as Chris being the main character, Chris is someone who we only get to learn about tangentially. I'm totally going to butcher the word for tangent, tangentially. Man, I can't believe I butchered that word. We only get to learn about Chris basically on the periphery. You have to be paying attention to the game. You have to be exploring in order to learn more about who they are, which really means that Susie stands in the forefront as the main character, who's the one who learns and grows the most so far between chapters 1 and 2, and is basically poised to continue having fantastic growth as a character throughout the rest of the game. But that will entail at some point having to delve into her home life, what's been going on there, how she became the bully, and what other issues there might be. There's still a lot of questions that I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting revelations for. Noel says, I know where you live. The reindeer knows where I live. Fabio, I just arrived out of nowhere, so I'll say a random thing on how I think some music will go. Awesome. Tell us how the music will go, Fabio. Cruisy is what I like, Mike. Hey, man, I'm right there. Noel says, I am not lesbian. Okay. Say, however Noel wishes to swing is totally fine with me. Again, like, I love shipping what I ship, but I'm totally open to all kinds of ships. And I know there's a lot of people who love the Snowgrave route because of how it implies the romance between Chris and Noel. And I'll just at least say this. The fan art for Chris and Noel is some top tier stuff. Art says Chris and Susie run into Caddy in the street, and Susie and Caddy get into an argument, but they're both near something from Noel's house, and they investigate. Gilgamesh, this is new. Arts, chapter 4, Chris, Susie hang out at some point. I'm pretty certain that they will be hanging out in chapter 4. I'm pretty certain of that. 10 out of 10. Snowy, Monster Kid, and Temmie. They are the trio that we absolutely need. Nemec, I wonder what time period Deltarune takes place in. The 90s, the 80s? I feel like Deltarune, if we were going to put it into an actual time, to me, it feels like the early 2000s. Now, maybe that's because that's when I went to high school, and so I just immediately like transfer it that way. But considering like how people already have cell phones, but they're not like smartphones, for instance, and how you have like some of the bulkier handheld games that you can actually see, it has a very early 2000s feel, because in the early 2000s, we hadn't yet gone into the sleek, cool, streamlined feel of handheld games, of cell phones, and everything else like that. But we are kind of on the cusp of it. People are still using CDs in the game of Deltarune. And so I feel like it definitely feels to me like an early 2000s setting. That's my answer to you, Mimic. But then again, that just might be me projecting, because again, that's when I went to high school. Fabio says the freedom motif will have different parts of the world revolving every chapter. Power of Spampton strengthens this. For me, as he changed it for Big Shot to be what it is. Fabio, I agree. I think that the freedom motif is going to definitely be in every optional boss fight, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how Toby adapts that leitmotif throughout the entire series. Because it's one of my favorites. The music for the world revolving and the music for Spampton are just, they are some of the best songs in my opinion. And it is that freedom leitmotif in there. Mike says, yeah, I think it takes place in the 2000s before 2010. Mike, I agree with you. We need info about Susie's home life as soon as possible. I don't know how many more stabbings and impaling jokes I can take. It gives me bad vibes. Yeah, there's definitely something going on there. Art says, I think Toby mentioned it's 2020, it's 22X. I think, yeah, you're right. I think he did say that, which then means that for these people in the world of Deltarune for 22X, they're using technology almost 2 decades old. The fan art for Chris and Noel goes in so many directions. OMG. Yeah, that does. Fabio says, the dial tone has that part. Big Shot has the first drop. Next chapter's the Circus will maybe have the obvious Gaster part of TWR of the world revolving, or part of it, while the fight will have dial tone, and then so on. Interesting. So that just, they continue to evolve, taking on the elements of each chapter, is what you're saying right there. That could be really interesting and beautifully chaotic. ISO says, from my perspective, it doesn't matter for me what the ship is if the art is good. I've seen NX doll art, and it was genuinely well made. Bad ship, but great art. Amen. Hey, don't hate on the artists who do fantastic things for the ships that they love. CRTs are still used if Spampton's dialogue is to be believed. Art says, a lot of small towns are behind the times. It's believable that a library in 2020 could use 20-year-old computers and one modern laptop. And I will agree with that. I've definitely been in those kinds of situations where it's like, holy cow, wait, what? I have, when I lived in Germany, I once went to a town that looked like it hadn't yet gotten out of World War II. Like, all the cars were from the 50s and 40s. All of the buildings looked overgrown, and like the only thing that could clue you in that you were still in the modern time was that the street was nicely paved. That was the only indicator that you had not literally just gone back 60 years into the past. 60, 70 years into the past. Meg says, wow, that's so cool. So you were in high school in the early 2000s. You got to really experience that area in real time. Fortunately, I was just a baby during those times. Well, early 2000s are interesting time. One of the problems of the early 2000s is that, as opposed to many other decades where they actually had an idea of who they were, the 2000s didn't know, like, we didn't know what we wanted to be. When you look at, like, the culture of the 2000s in terms of music, aesthetic, fashion, various groups, the 2000s is everything. We're eclectic. We're an amalgamation of literally everything that came before, just dressed up with duck faces, tank tops, lots of pink, but that only lasted for about 3 years. And we moved on from that. So it's an interesting time period. Mike says, I experienced half that time. I was a kid in the 2000s. Or it's black leather. Yes, lots of black leather. There was a specific time. There was a time when the goth movement got really big, but again, it only lasted for a small amount of time. And then people who were like the OG goths never accepted the new goth movement. I remember those literal fights in the middle of school. I suppose the 2000s were off to a bad start anyway. Yeah. This is a rough decade to enter into for a variety of reasons. X-Men Matrix movies in early 2000s. Oh yes, and, in terms of storytelling, the early 2000s were fantastic. They were not as good as like some of the stuff that came from like the end of the 90s and the end of the 80s, But the early 2000s has the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It has the beginnings of the X-Men. It has the Matrix. CGI really came into its own. And funny enough, like the early CGI still many times looks really good. Like Spider-Man 2, holy cow. I still get chills. I get chills watching Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man fight Doc Ock. It is so good. Disney Channel, Hannah Montana, that's my era. Amen, right there. Oh man, back when the Disney Channel actually had good stuff going for it. Rosemary Harris, she just turned 97. Well, congratulations to her. Yeah, no, she played a great Aunt May. But so yeah. So getting us back into gear with Deltarune right there. So while I feel that Deltarune is stuck in the early 2000s, according to Toby Fox, it's 22X. But because they are a small town, absolutely they can be a little bit behind the times in terms of technology, which gives them a little bit more of a retro feel. And that's totally fine. And honestly, it's Toby's world. It's Toby's story. We can speculate about exactly what time period they may be in. The one thing we know is that they're not stuck in the 80s. So we're not getting more 80s cheese and nostalgia for a change, which is kind of nice. Even though I love the 80s aesthetic and 80s movies, it's nice to have something that isn't stuck in the 80s. Fabio says, even with some of the things Toby said about rules, I think it would be so funny if some chapter had him in all caps. Some people maybe would notice because of his grandiosity, and then he's a secret boss. That would be hilarious. I would love for rules to actually be like a legit secret boss. Though I will say, in chapter 2, where he challenges you in the acid tunnel of love, that actually was a pretty good fight. A good puzzle battle. And I have to give Toby Fox kudos for that. That was really well done. TV Count says Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon for me. Oh man, it's so dumb that Cartoon Network has been given the axe and that Nickelodeon has been neglected all this time. Like the cartoons of the early to mid 2000s were just amazing. Art says, this is my trash theory for tonight. Toby Fox is actually Tobey Maguire. Yeah, that is a trash theory right there, but we will roll with it. Mike says Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon were good then. Yes, they were. Holy dang. TV Cast asks, who here has finished Liam Vickers' Black Dogs? The twist still haunts me. Well, I have not followed up with Black Dogs. So unfortunately, TV Account, I cannot give my input into that particular story. But as far as Liam Vickers goes, it seems as if he's dropping a hint that he might return to Cliffside. And no one knows if he's just trolling us or if he actually is going to return to Cliffside, but it is a possibility, which I am all here for. All right. Let's see here. So some things I want to throw out there as far as like more speculation for what could be happening with Deltarune Chapter 3. One of the big things for me that people are like, oh, like everyone's really excited about this Mike fellow. And they're like, yeah, Mike is definitely Mike is like, yeah, I'm definitely, like, people are like, Mike is the next secret boss. I don't know if I believe that Mike is the next secret boss, because to me it feels a little silly for Toby to tilt his hand and already kind of give away something for that people are gonna be like, okay, I gotta find Mike, and I'm gonna figure out how he's the secret boss. Is how most people are going to play it, and I think that he's trolling us. That he's going to introduce Mike to us, and everyone's gonna be like, Mike is the secret boss. But that Mike is going to end up being more in the lines of Queen's character, the predominant antagonist throughout Chapter 3 that we have to deal with. I think this is what I think is going to happen. And granted, this is kind of vague because obviously I'm speculating here. I don't have the information right there in front of me. But because this is going to be a chapter that's going to be in the Dreamer house, and that it is going to revolve around the Dreamer family to a certain degree. I think that the secret boss that we're going to deal with is a boss representing something either from Toriel or from Asgore. And I am going to lean more towards Asgore because he seems to be the one who actually has the greater secrets to hide. And so I could see that as being the secret boss, whatever that is. It could either be something to do with him back when he was a cop, something having to do with his time in college when he met Toriel, or something else. But I think that the secret boss is going to have something to do with Asgore, hidden somewhere inside the house. And as much as I would love for How to Draw a Dragon being the secret boss, I don't think that'll be the case. But for those of you who are Cruzy fans, I think that How to Draw Dragons is going to be something to look out for, because that book is almost definitely going to pop up in chapter 3. Somehow, somewhere, some way, it's going to be there. And I can't wait to see how Susie reacts to that. TV account asks, where did you hear that? TV account, that was from Liam Vickers' own Twitter account. He posted something new for Cliffside, which got tons of people really, really excited. Fabio says, in fact, when people talked about secret bosses maybe being reverse UT No Mercy Order, my mind went, rules would be a good papyrus. Okay, so it would be a verse Undertale, No Mercy Order. My mind went, rules would be a good papyrus. To extent, list Muffet, Papyrus, and Toriel-based bosses. Ooh. Fabio, you might be onto something right there. I like that. Mike says, I look forward to the music of Chapter 3. Same here. Toby just has such a great skill for music. Something that I wish I could comment more on. I love music, but I can't read music. Even though I've been in multiple choirs, I've done musical theater. I've never been able to read it. I can look at a note and know about where I need to hit in terms of pitch and feel, but that's about it. I need the conductor and I need the rest of the choir around me in order to not be totally off key. Art says, so Susie talks about wanting to become a giant lizard during the Ferris wheel segment and loving giant monster movies at the end of chapter 2. Think we'll see Chris riding atop Susie Zilla as a fight? I want that so bad, because we're going into movie land. I want the movies and the shows to represent not just like Asgore and Toriel and what they used to watch, but what Chris loves to watch and what Susie loves to watch. I think that could be just tons of fun. Why do I feel like Undertale game took place in the 70s? I know Azrael and his family would thrive within the hippie movement, especially with all their flower crowns motifs and all. Maybe it's because of the flowers. Maybe that's why you feel that way. Art says the discarded flowers seem like they'll be a possibility as a callback to Flowey, Omega Flowey. I would love to see that. Imagine having to fight a variation of Omega Flowey as a secret boss, and do it with the mechanics of Deltarune. That would be tons of fun. Art says it's a dreamer-focused chapter after all. Yep, that will be. Susie will tell Chris, draw me cool. Chris, I want you to draw me like one of your dragon chicks. You are a dragon chick. Exactly, draw me cool. Okay, I'll do that. Mike, music is hard to read sometimes. Yes, it is. Roblox is down. Asgore doesn't have a skeleton in his closet because they walked away. But Mick says, yeah, same here, Mr. Lars. I can sing music, but I can't read it. TV account, just found it. I really like how he draws his characters. That's some artsy. OMG. Yes, it is. Now, if you guys will hold on just a second right here, I got to quickly grab up something. Otherwise, this stream might suddenly come crashing down. We don't want another disaster on our hands. So, a little bit of dead air. And this is why most people do not do live streams away from their own homes. Because everything just starts falling apart on you. Aha. Alrighty then. Okay, potential crisis has been averted. Hallelujah. Sorry about that, everyone. Say, doing a live stream away from home, things get weird. Okay. Let's see here. What did I miss? No, more audio issues. No. So thankfully not. At least not for right now. Fabio, I want to believe in Woody and Flowey or just flowers. Chapter 3 theories. Would that be Petaley theory? He could make things that go hard as music by his audio YTP talents, narrative-wise, with how the lyrics go. Interesting. So if I understand what you're saying right here, Fabio, you're talking about how the music can help to obviously the music plays a massive role in the stories that Toby Fox tells. But that if we got, let's say, a song with real lyrics again in the game somewhere, and that if that were to happen, that would then potentially, if I'm understanding you correct, that could then play a role in how hard some of the boss fights might be. There'd be something to do a boss fight where you got music that actually has lyrics to it. If any of you have seen the playthroughs for the game Billy Bust Up, there's two boss battles that are done to actual like Disney villain songs. Now, not like, and when I say Disney villain, it's not that they actually took villains from Disney movies, but rather that these villains feel like they came out of a Disney movie. If you haven't seen the playthroughs for those battles from Billy Bust Up, I highly recommend it. They are something else. I says, that's fine. My phone is dead anyway. No! Long live the Chris's excuse, as he did it. Yes. I'm going to go, well, does anyone think the chess theory will be a thing? So, for those of you who don't know with the chess theory, it is that all of these different people represent chess pieces on the board, like what we got back in the first chapter. I don't think so. I'm Omega. I remember months and months ago going back and having a look at the chess theory, and I thought, well, that's interesting. And there were people who were like, do a video and debunk the chess theory. And I'm like, look, I'm into making my own theories. I don't normally go out of my way to try to debunk other people's theories. But considering how much information is probably going to get dumped onto us in the upcoming chapters, I think it might overwhelm what the chess theory presents to us. If that makes any sense. So we'll see what happens. Will it be a thing? Potentially. Like, still, who knows how this game is going to swing? There's so many possibilities. But I wasn't convinced when I first watched the videos on the chess theory. Art says, though I imagine Azzy got Chris into Dragon Girls over time. Amen. He definitely that or this is actually my theory that Chris really wanted the book and wasn't allowed to get the book for whatever reason, and so that Azrael was the one who got it for him, and Chris just never returned it. Mike, Azzy fanfic writer, LOL. I'm Omega. I agree with the chess theory. So Dorcas agrees with the chess theory. Okay. Art says, as he did create the basis for Chapter 2's secret boss, after all. Fabio, the whole Woody theory thing is so interesting, and all the fans stuff that came from it. Have you heard all of this? You Have a Friend in Me edits? They're usually spectacularly by fans already. I actually haven't heard any of the You've Got a Friend in Me stuff. So no, I don't know. Art says, chess theory does have some basis to it, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah, and we're just going to have to see. Again, just because I didn't agree with it doesn't mean that I'm right in not agreeing with the chess theory. Nick says, Susie, draw me like one of your cool gals, Chris. ISO lives! Yes. So let's see here. Before I had to go and avert a crisis from happening, what was I even really going on about? Well, probably doesn't really matter anymore then. Fabio, I believe Mettaton's ghost without a body made the Neo body in paint spammed and stole. Oh, Mettaton. I am hoping that we get a good Mettaton reference in the upcoming chapter. Some people have thought it might be Mike. I'm not entirely certain. What I would love to find out is that Mettaton is basically a roommate either to Azrael or a roommate to Sans and Papyrus, because so Sans has been teasing us with the Papyrus reveal, and I don't think we're going to get Papyrus in chapter 3, but I think we're going to get teased with another Papyrus reveal, or actually get a true Papyrus reveal in chapter 4. Is where I think we'll finally get to meet him, and it will be very short. People are going to be really upset, and then we're going to get some good Papyrus nonsense later on. Napstablook. Man, I've heard some people suggest that Napstablook is going to be the guy who arrives at the scene. Since Chris left the door open. Others have said that Undyne will be the one to show up. And while I think that Undyne is probably the most likely to enter into the Dreamer house and potentially also fall into this dark world, especially since she's all like, what? Dark world? There's no dark world, you silly dumb kids. There's always the chance that Asgore could also be the one to show up, because I would not actually put it past Asgore to have a police radio somewhere in his shop that he took and that he's been listening in on. I could absolutely see him doing that. And me, I'm like, wait, what? There's a problem over at my house? I can be the dashing prince and save the day. Huff, 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 run on over, rush inside, fall into the dark world, and just have absolutely no idea what's going on. Nick says, "Oh, you were going on about the swinging 2000s, I think." Yeah, no, we'll leave the swinging 2000s where they were. It's best to remain there. Arts. So something I want to bring up: Toriel as a playable guest party member. Will she be a hybrid healer attacker? That is an interesting question. Mike, Distant Trestle of Bones. Such a good song. Bone Trestle is so. Bone Trestle is such an earworm. You don't realize it, I think, at first, unless you're like a really good musician. But like after you've listened to Bone Trestle, you're like, that was fun. And then it just haunts you. And you're like, I must listen to it again. So as far as the possibility of Toriel being a playable guest party member, I think that could very well be the case. I think that she will be. And as far as what she could, be, like a hybrid of a healer and attacker, most definitely. And I think that in terms of, let's say, like your typical online fantasy MMORPG, or something like Dungeons and Dragons, I think that it is highly likely that Toriel would be something along the lines of a bard. And the reason why I say a bard is because we know from Rudy that Toriel used to be a bit of a wild girl. And maybe a little bit promiscuous, much like bards are, that she was really fiery. We know that she loves silly and dumb jokes, which again falls very much in line with the bards. We know that the Dreamer family used to sing at the church, so I would suspect that Toriel probably has a good set of pipes, and a bard is someone who within the game of Dungeons and Dragons can be a really good support character, but sometimes the bards can also be fantastic fantastic offensive characters, and so I think that Toriel will probably be a bard if we get to have her on our party as a playable character. I think that that's what she'll be. Then Fabio says, Papyrus Knight, I finally found other people who found similarity in Nightmare Knight and Lost Girl, especially structure-wise, and Papyrus Knight. I just want to hear a perfectly voice-acted oh my gosh, Papyrus as the knight. The twist that we all probably should have seen coming, but none of us wanted to believe. Gaster with broken hearts. Oh, Gaster is breaking everyone's hearts. That quite literally. And Evan, love me some red mages. Ooh. I'm Omega. Wait, what? In response to what Fabio has posted. Arts, I like how Toby shot down the Papyrus Knight theory. Oh, he did. If you didn't know, I'm talking about See the Newsletter. I actually had not, because I had not heard of this theory, so I didn't realize that Toby was shooting it down. How interesting. Ooh, taking a drink of water right there. Also, I understand Papyrus's love for spaghetti. Spaghetti is life, especially mom's spaghetti. Oh no. We don't need any of that, Mimic. So yeah. So if we do get to have Toriel in our party, I think that she's going to be a bard. I think that the secret boss is not going to be Mike. That Mike is going to be kind of the overarching antagonist, and that our secret boss is going to have something probably to do with Asgore. Then I think that this is going to be something that we're going to have to search for to find, but that we're going to find how to draw dragons somewhere in the house. Like, this is the best time for that thing to pop up again. So I suspect that we'll find it. And I believe it'll be one of those things that you kind of have to go looking for, just like how in Chapter 2, you really have to go looking to find the second egg that Gaster gives you. But more so than that, in the corner, there's the moss. And if you eat the moss and then invite Susie to eat the moss with you, you then get that interesting little tsundere moment from Susie, where that's like a total tell of like, oh, oh, you've got a nice side to you that I hadn't really thought much about. And then also, if you exhaust the dialogue back in the prison rooms that the Queen puts the party into, where you then have Susie using her very soft expression that she used for Chris when she's like, "Let's go back tomorrow," and Ralsei's like, "Why are you saying it that way?" Like, I am like, what? I just like how you have to go hunting for those little funny moments I think that how to draw dragons is something that we're going to have to go hunting for if it is in chapter 3. Let's see here. Fabio says, I love the Nightmare Night stuff, and yeah, Lost Girl has some structural similarities. Yes, I have listened to that. Papyrus has an interview and remarks how you could be evil. Well, he asks, how could anyone think I could be evil? Yeah, this kind of reminds me a little bit of Dr. Doofenshmirtz. You see, Barry the Platypus, before I was evil, I was something a little less than evil. I was a bratwurst street vendor. Fabio, well, he was an enemy in Undertale, enemy in quotes, and Sans' comment on enemies could be how people theorize Papyrus's knight will be misguided. Mike Paps, I'm not evil, just misguided. I think that when we actually get to meet Papyrus and actually just really like spend time with him, I think is when we'll get invited. And I think that when we actually finally get to meet Papyrus is when we're going to get invited into Sans' house, and we're going to have some crazy stuff playing out. I suspect that Sans' house is going to have a lot of fun little Easter eggs that we can go playing around for, looking for. They'll have definite connections to Undertale and either be legit connections or just some fun red herrings. And then, of course, just get fun classic Papyrus and probably burn some spaghetti. It is very likely where we're going to be going with that. And awkward as heck. Yes. Art says he had a legit time machine in Undertale after all. Yes, he did. Sans and Papyrus are most definitely jumping around. And we know that from the boss fight against Sans in Undertale. So I mean, it's just a matter of time before we get that ultimate confirmation of what's going on. Fabio, Pete NVB in Napstabluke's channel is in Pustabluke's channel is my favorite interpretation of the Woody theory. Okay, thank you for sharing that, Fabio. Mike says, what about Sans' secret lab? Oh, we'll probably get there. We're probably going to get there. These games are so big. This game is so big. We're very likely going to get into those secret labs. I would love to see us actually discovering the picture of the 3 friends with the message "Don't forget" written on it, because I'm pretty certain that that's supposed to be Chris, Susie, and Ralsei that are on that message that Sans has been keeping all this time. Or maybe we are the ones who give it to Sans. Who knows? Mary says, honestly, if there was another GOAT character in an Undertale game, I think the name Ariel would be perfect for that character. Toriel, Asgore, Azrael, and Ariel. We're getting a lot of. I'm liking the alliteration right there between all of those names. Let's see here. Before we begin to shift gears, because we should start getting our. It says we've already. Not counting the ridiculousness that was the first 15, 20 minutes of trying to get this live stream up and go, and we've already gone for more than an hour here. Woo-wee. I think that if there's one thing that I'm really, really curious about in terms of writing. Like, this is not like getting into like the deeper lore and mythos of Deltarune, but this is in terms of writing quality. This is where I want to see what Toby can really do. Is that television shows and movies tell us a lot about what a person is like, not just simply what they like, but what they are like. So, for instance, John, who unfortunately wasn't able to jump back on since the debacle at the beginning of the live stream. I've known John for a long time now, and he loves his superhero stories, and especially stuff like Superman. And when you see that someone really likes and just really consumes, not just for the entertainment value, but for the story, for the messages, stories of heroism, of these superheroes, these paragons of virtue and skill who are there to inspire you. when someone likes those kinds of stories, that means that that person very much holds themselves to a high standard. They hold other people to a high standard, not maliciously so, but rather that they see that if we could be like these great superheroes, even if we don't have superpowers ourselves, we could do amazing things. We could make the world so much a better place. And you see that from the people who truly love superhero stories. Now then, for someone like me who absolutely loves fantasy stories, I consume fantasy content on the regular. And what that then begins to tell you about me is the kind of person I am, that the things that I believe in, how I can be very accepting of crazy ideas. Sometimes I can go completely off the walls. I can think in very abstract ways. Fantasy says a lot about who I am as a person. If I was way more geared towards very hardcore sci-fi, I would could be considered not just simply a very creative person, but also a very logical person. That creativity and logic come together in a perfect combination. And so you get these insights into who a person is based on the things that they love to watch, the things that they love to read. And what I'm hoping to get in chapter 3 of Deltarune is clear insight into Chris, Susie, and Toriel, and maybe even into other characters as well who might be introduced to us from Hometown in chapter 3 through the shows that they consume and how they react to those shows. As I'm very certain that we're going to get some interesting responses from Toriel in regards to some of the fights that we end up getting into, some of the movies and shows that come to life in chapter 3. So I'm really looking forward to how the aesthetics and the world tell us more about who these characters are. Kind of like how in chapter 2 we learn a lot about Susie, Chris, and to a certain extent Birdley, based on the rooms that we can explore after being captured by Queen. And so I'm hoping that we get to see that happen again in this chapter and what that will reveal to us about these characters. And if Toby can pull that off again and give us that perspective from a television standpoint, I think that would really show Toby's writing chops. And even if he doesn't do it, that's fine. I'll still be enjoying the game most likely and playing on through it. But I'm very curious because visual storytelling, more so than written prose, since I write books, visual storytelling has the ability to convey so much information and so much meaning through what we see. And Toby Fox is an incredible storyteller. And I would love to see what he pulls off by conveying stories through these movies and television shows in chapter 3. So that's one of the things I'm most looking forward to. They catch up with what people have written right here. The little goat maid. I do now believe How to Draw Dragons is a funny reference to Toby wanting to make the Dreamer furried dragons, but getting pointed out that they look like goats and just running with it. I know that. Toby grew up in my neck of the woods, i.e. New England, so I can relate to the setting he portrays in game very well since he grew up in the New England town. Okay, I know, and I can see that. Hometown is very like a New England small town, sans the bunker in the woods. You know what? Maybe more New England towns need their own bunker in the woods. The fact that people question what Susie is makes How to Draw Dragons funnier to me. Yeah, if anyone's like, I don't know what Susie is. Oh, she's very clearly a dragon. And especially with her comment of, if someone were to breathe fire down this tube, do you think the other person would feel it at the other end? Oh boy. Ooh. I can't wait to see Susie actually breathe some real fire. Or it's and her reaction to Azrael's room is telling in chapter 2. Yes. Mimic, exactly. Not all superheroes wear capes. Amen. Stormcrow, I want to have a big kiss between Chris and Susie. Well, Stormcrow, if we are going to get a kiss between Chris and Susie, I do not expect it to happen until towards the end of the game. I think that as far as romantic relationships go within the story, Toby's going to take his time cooking with those, sculpting out all the different possibilities based on character choice that could lead us up to who ends up with who. And honestly, that's the way that I would want it. I don't want a romance within chapter 3 or even by chapter 4. By chapters 5, 6, and 7, sure. Any romantic side plot that's being built up, then I would expect to actually start seeing to culminate in various ways. Because if we just jump to it right now, none of the ships that have been presented to us have been developed really in a way that I would feel comfortable with saying, yes, let's go with that. Not even Cruzy, even though I've done so many videos about Cruzy and speculations. I want to see that relationship properly developed. Any relationship properly developed, because it's something that we see happen way too often in writing and in most storytelling. That's like, teens like each other, let's crash them together because, hey, isn't that how most teens act? Well, not really. And also, that takes away from all of the fun character development that comes with actually getting them together. But what also must not be forgotten is how much great character development you have once those characters get together, and then you start navigating that relationship differently. And that's just good writing advice right there. All right. Let's see here. Fabio says Dragon with a comically little cute tail. Yes, that little cute tail. I expect to see more of that. And also, again, I really am looking forward to when she has real fire breathing. Maybe says off topic, but honestly, I wish I can live in the fantasy world of Deltarune and Undertale. Reality is really sad and scary. Yeah, sometimes it can be. But you know what? The fantasies that we have are there to help us to escape for a while and to reconcile with the world that we live in. Fantasy is not something that we should desire to fully escape into. This is one of the problems that I have with isekai, is that isekai presents itself as, if you go to this other world, then everything that was wrong with you will now be made better. Hooray! But that's effectively power fantasy. And power fantasy is very rarely really fulfilling. Instead, what I love about portal fantasy is how the heroes can escape this world, go to another for a time, but they're realized that the world that they've gone to has its own problems as well. And that by dealing with these problems in another world, they then become empowered either through actual powers or through experience, through knowledge, through relationships, whatever it be. It empowers them then to then deal with their problems in the real world. And in many ways, that's, I think, one of the reasons why I love Portal Fantasy so much, is because with Portal Fantasy, it is basically within the story a replication of what so many of us experience when we decide to escape into a great book, into a great movie, into a great television show, into a great video game, into a great comic or manga. That is basically what we are doing. We're going to another world, experiencing things, and then eventually having to come back to this one. And then hopefully we are better prepared to then deal with the life that we have. Philosophy from Lars. Art says, there's always fan art, my friend. Be careful in your search, though. Yes, amen. Stormcrow, Noel's reaction that moment will cause the genocide route in hometown. Possibly, all depending on what happens. Unfortunately, Noel, in both Pacifist and in Snowgrave route, is getting set up for a massive fall of some kind. We're just going to have to see exactly how that gets built up. We do have that hint from the latest newsletter that shows us Noel in a room with a bunch of massive presents, looking a little bit freaked out while holding a flashlight. Noel, again, is still a scaredy cat. There are things that are being built up to unfortunately go poorly for Noel, no matter how you play the game. And that's just, for her, that's just the sad, honest truth. But again, because the game is about becoming friends with everyone, that means that there has to be a happy ending for Noel. We just have to find it. Art says, I like how Toby does this big Ferris wheel scene in chapter 2. Makes it skippable. At the end, Susie asks, hey, who would you bring to the festival? Chris, Noel, or Ralsei? Yeah. Mike, reality is scary, but it does have good moments. Amen. And I love the quote at the end, towards the end of Ready Player One, where the guy who had made the big virtual reality that everyone's been escaping into, the Oasis, how he then says, don't forget reality. It's the only place you can live, and it's the only place you can get a decent sandwich. And I love that quote because it's so dang true. Art says it's healthy and realistic for Susie to be conflicted in her feelings. Amen. Amen. And it just makes it more fun. Because Susie doesn't think Chris wouldn't because Susie doesn't think Chris wouldn't be her friend if the dark world wasn't real. Oh man, I love that take. So many isekai are about a weak loser who goes into the world and impresses everyone with his outstanding skill and gets a harem. It's kind of annoying. Exactly. And it doesn't change anything for the person. It's like, oh, I was great all along. No, it's dumb. I think it's way better to show how a character had amazing qualities in them all along, but then that those qualities have to be put to the test. And that means they have to get hammered. They have to go through some hard times. It's one of the things I've enjoyed in writing my own Portal Fantasy stories is that, for instance, my main character, Ben, in The Legend of the Ten Lords, that poor kid has so many tough things that I put him through. And there was even times where I'm like, oh my gosh, are people even like would anyone even be happy with this? Because he gets to eat his humility pie so many times. But the ultimate thing is that he has to go through all those experiences to learn to break down barriers and to strip away his naivete to who he is, to this world, the people that are in this other world, and come to realize who he is as an individual, and also to not be like so many of these other people who have completely lost themselves to this universe of imagination, where they only basically they speed run their way through waking life to get to this fantasy world, because in this fantasy world they feel so much better. But again, life is the only place really to live. And when people take this fantasy world too seriously and it begins to bleed into reality, it causes so many problems. And Ben, as that person who has gone through all of this, is a little bit better empowered and more grounded to not make the mistakes that people who are considered his betters, quote unquote, made. He can be the hero who doesn't make those mistakes. And that's what I try to do throughout the series. But that requires Ben going through a lot of problems. Darkest Daydreams, Ben 10? No, not Ben 10, unfortunately. No, Ben from my story, The Legend of the Ten Lords. Which, if anyone's interested in checking that out, you can find the series on Amazon. Here I am, hawking my wares. I feel so cringy at doing that. But yeah, The Legend of the Ten Lords. Whoop, whoop. And I can spell. Get rid of that 10. Legend of the Ten Lords. There we go. I know what you meant, Lars. I was just making a joke. I do appreciate it. And Ben 10 is actually a series that I never got into. It came out at just the inopportune time for me because of school and everything else that was happening. I just never had the chance to get into it. And so there's some people who love Ben 10. I'm like, one of these days I'm gonna have to watch this. Nick says, and that's exactly what happened in the movie Coraline. Now that's some great Portal Fantasy content right there. Yes, Coraline's so great. Then Art says, oh, this is an old topic. Chris's sword is actually a pencil in real life. How about Susie's axe? What pointy thing could be her axe? If I remember correctly, it's a brush. If I remember that correctly, a brush is her axe in the when they return to the light world. Chuyin from Undertale Yellow. Okay, Undertale Yellow. Loves it. LOL. I gotta take another drink of water. Okay, so let's see here. Let's start transitioning things a wee bit right here. I am going to quickly grab up the trailer, the teaser trailer for the amazing Digital Circus episode 3.
Coming soon.
Bring down the audio so that way it doesn't blow out people's eardrums. The axe could be a hairbrush. I'm pretty certain that the axe actually is a hairbrush. And just to kind of round off things a little bit better here for Deltarune, really looking forward to it when it comes out. Again, I expect that'll probably come out towards the end of October, beginning of November would be my guess. And I have asked myself this, and I'll ask this to you guys. Would you like to see a streamed playthrough of that game? Like Camille's Harem is not a video game playthrough channel. I think the closest, I think I've tried that at least once with Elden Ring to kind of mixed results. So I don't know if that's something that people would exactly like to see here on the channel. But if so, I think it could be fun. Now, again, I'm not a really great gamer, so you'd see probably plenty of messing up. But hey, it's how it's how it goes. Okay, I see yes, yeah, it sounds like a good time. Okay. So when it comes out, I'll try and make them the time to stream Deltarune, and we'll have a good time with it. Like a Halloween themed adventure. Yes. Oh, and speaking of Halloween, we are also, as we are getting closer to Spooky Month, to official Spooky Month, the month of October, I just got to make this quick shout out again. We will be doing the Choose Your Own horror adventure story. So keep an eye out for that. That will be coming out real soon. And actually another question as far as what you guys would like to get. Let's see Lars fight Jevil. I'll have to brush up on my skills. There was one time I actually went in just to do the Jevil fight for fun and beat him first try. I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. And then I got flattened. But as far as going into Spooky Month goes, if you guys haven't yet seen Haunt Hounds, which I highly recommend checking out Owen Rogers' Haunt Hounds channel. I was watching some of his newest videos today. Woo! Oh boy, there was some fun spooky stuff. Even though we are not a reaction channel or a gaming channel, we're a channel about writing and everything, I think it would be fun. And again, you guys let me know if this is something that you would like. But at the end, but as kind of like the end thing that we do then for each live stream during the month of October, go and have a look at one of the ghost hunting videos that Owen Rogers and his people did, and just like have some fun looking at it, be a little bit spooked, and maybe even talk a little bit about horror stories and drawing inspiration from the antics of these 4 crazy mad lads who are going hunting for ghosts. Spooky, scary skeletons will send shivers down your spine. Yes. All right. So, stuff to think about. We'll see if we do it. And let's get started with this right here.
On an all-new episode of the amazing Digital Circus.
Okay. I love the Goosebumps callback. This has been this is an open secret to everyone, but that the amazing Digital Circus very much is tapping into a 90s aesthetic in terms of its animation, its colors, how it looks. And so this right here, as far as like, we're going to do a spooky episode this time, it is great to have that callback to the Goosebumps. For anyone who actually grew up with the Goosebumps, that was spooky. It's funny because like now as an adult, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a cheap, funny show. But as a kid, like when the Goosebumps intro began, woo, that just sends shivers down my spine. Like, oh, well, we're getting the goosebumps. And while some goosebumps were definitely like really hokey, goofy, cheesy episodes, there were some episodes of the Goosebumps that were horrifying. Like the episode with the gnomes, with the garden gnomes. That one still makes me shiver a little bit because that is creepy. The vindictive garden gnomes. They need to do more intros like that. Yes, they do. We need to return back to a little bit of the 90s and 80s cheese for some stuff. May not be a total ripoff, but let's return to the cheese and the spook.
Our friends find themselves in the decrepit manor of the Milden Halls.
All right, so we got ourselves going to the Milden Hall Manor. Not to be confused with the last creepy manor that Glitch Productions took us to. Though I highly doubt they're going to do this, but it would be hilarious if there's an Easter egg reference to Sin in this episode. That would be amazing. DV, I think it only clarifies what time the show takes place in. Yeah, this gives us a good 90s. This kind of helps us to cement us in that 90s vibe, that 90s feel. Very likely a 90s setting. Mimic, yes, I love Goosebumps so much. What a great callback indeed. That green Goosebumps slime will always be an iconic staple in pop culture. Amen. All right, so we're returning to another haunted manor. Kane is very, very clearly getting into this.
Except me. I'm not going on a stupid haunted house adventure.
So I had actually thought that we were going to get Kane talking things over with Zubul back in episode 2, since Zubul's like, yeah, I'm checking out. And I was like, okay, then Zubul's checking out. Like, I imagine that we're going to get a little side story between them and Kane. So I'm happy that we're getting it here in episode 3 because it's much needed. We need some one-on-one time with Zubul to really get to know their character. Because while Zubul is funny and snarky do not a deep character make. And because this is a show where we are supposed to get to know these characters a little bit better, to truly understand the existential crises that each one of them is going through, this means that we have to actually get to know who Zubul is as a person. So I'm happy that we're going to get this little subplots. And I love seeing Pomni's eyes pop out of her head.
Look, I team up with Pomni in this adventure. That should be fun. And look at that.
I love you, Kinger. I love this little clip right here. I haven't seen anyone else bring this up, and maybe this is just me, but seeing Jax with what appears to be a vacuum cleaner. Did anyone else get the vibes of Luigi's Mansion? Because because I'm getting like Luigi's Mansion Ghostbuster vibes, seeing Jax hanging around with this thing. I want to see him try to go and bust some ghosts. and then really badly failed. Dorcas says you did. All right. Imega says, oh, Hannah says kinda. Okay. Mimic, Vampire Jax when? He can devour my blood any day. Oh, I don't know if I'd want to tell Jax that. He'll more than happily help himself too, and he doesn't even need to be a vampire. They better force Zubul in the adventure. LOL. I don't think they're going to get forced into the adventure this time, but I definitely believe that Zubul will be a part of the adventure proper in episode 4. Pomni the worried. And it says, yeah, I got the Ghostbusters. Yeah, there's definitely like a Ghostbusters, Luigi's Mansion kind of feel to this. I'm like, I hope no one gets stuck in the paintings. Oh, ooh.
That vacuum cleaner. You love vacuum cleaners, don't you, Zubul?
No. Why would you?
I love Kinger. Hey, you love paintings, don't you, Zubul?
You think I like vacuum? Wait, was that me in therapy?
No, I think that was me with a shotgun.
Oh my gosh! So now we know. So now we have the reference finally connect. Kinger with a shotgun. It's going to be in this episode. Holy cow. Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters. Vacuum up those Zoobles. Okay. Here's the thing. This has been built up for a long time now. Kinger with a shotgun. I think it's going to be like a very quick gag. And that it's going to just be like a one and done thing. Like Kinger's like, I can help you out with the shotgun. And then the shotgun is going to get like wrecked. Or he's going to lose it. Or he'll never fire it. It's going to be a play on Chekhov's gun. Where they're like, see, we have the gun. We're going to have to fire it at some point. And then Kinger never fires it. And so he just like clubs people with it or something. Or loses it. So pulling it on back.
You love vacuum cleaners, don't you, Zooble?
No. Why would you think I like vacuum? Wait, was that me in therapy?
No, I think that was me with a shotgun.
Oh, great.
The 2D eyes. Yes. I like that little sun switch on over there to 2D. I like the little quick references that we're going to get yet more Jax antics. This is going to be great. And Kane conducting therapy has got to be a nightmare. If you're scared of therapy, I think you're going to feel better of being with an actual therapist than doing a therapy session with Kane. I think that's basically what we're going to get. That's the blender that we're going to get thrown into. He says, I'm put on hold for 7 more therapists at the moment. I'm all set for life. Oof.
Great.
Sorry to hear that.
Suck, isn't it?
See you all there whenever this thing comes out.
Wasn't I supposed to be the narrator? Why'd they interrupt me? And I've been teleported to a meat freezer.
Nah, the meat freezer. You know, I hope that this is something that they keep bringing up of people getting sent to the meat freezer. And that at some point, like later on the series, they actually come across a meat freezer and they'll like unleash all these people who have been put in there, which then makes all of the trailers suddenly canonical, which then means that all of us have been have been a part of this crazy ride, which is this massive advertising entertainment complex thing that was hinted at in the pilot episode. That'd be great to see it. Therapy with the Madhouse, yes. Dork Stations, if Vampire Jax was real, I would stab him with a wooden stake immediately. Die! Oh my gosh. Oh, Jax, this is gonna be great. Kane is giving Pomni company in her meat freezer purgatory. Yes. Meg says there's some elements of this trailer that sort of reminds me of Beetlejuice. Yeah, I can see the Beetlejuice vibe right there, and I'm totally here for that. I'm looking forward to what the adventure is that they're being thrown into in this particular manner because Kane has these really big game ideas. So like for instance in the pilots with going for the Gloinks, the thing is that if they had actually played through the adventure and listened to the dialogue, the Gloinks are actually trying to overthrow God. They're trying to overthrow the entire system. Like they are an existential threat to everything. And so therefore they must be stopped. It started off as super cutesy and fun, ends up becoming this eldritch Lovecraftian abomination story that must be stopped. That's the first story. But the main cast doesn't pay any attention to what's actually happening in that game or its storyline because they don't care. And then in episode 2 with Candy Carrier Chaos, the story is basically supposed to be them going out to be heroes, saving the day. There is, of course, greater lore of what kinds of monstrosities are out there, being the Fudge. With the Fudge being just another eldritch abomination that, if the heroes are not careful, could come in and destroy everything. So the heroes, while going and stopping the candy bandits or the maple syrup bandits and saving the day, have to make sure they don't ruin the world in the process, which Jax totally screws up. Yeah, Mike, the Gloin Queen. Yeah, the Gloin Queen wants to basically overthrow the entire system. So we've got the Gloin Queen. We've had Fudge, which are these horrible monsters that have to be kept at bay. That the heroes, our main cast of characters, haven't really been paying any attention to. They just consider that all of Kane's games are just stupid little things for them to finish, so that way they can get through their existential crisis in this, and just the monotony of being trapped in the digital circus. But within the 2 stories that we've gotten so far, the 2 games or quests that have been given to them have had some interesting suggestions of what might actually be going on. And then when you pair that off with the experiences that Pomni is having, such as trying to find the exit door and then getting trapped in the void and having to be saved, and just realizing like her mind breaks and she's absolutely trapped. There's no way to get out. But then in episode 2, becoming friends with Gummy Goo, by breaking the system and going into the backlogs, by going into the backlog data, and they're discovering who Gummy Goo actually is, him discovering himself, and them forming an unlikely friendship and actually supporting each other. There are important moral lessons that are being communicated to Pomni that are also running concurrently with suggestions of something maybe a little bit bigger and more sinister playing out that Kane might be trying to warn them of. Who really knows? We don't yet fully know. That's something to speculate on. I'm really excited for us finally being able to see this on October 4th, and hopefully getting a little bit more data, a little bit more insights into the story that might help us to see if there really is a correlation between the existential crisis that the characters are undergoing and all of the crazy stories that they're being forced to play through. So maybe this is all just me pontificating and rambling, or maybe it is the big thing. Isa says, since Kane's not really a villain, I'm willing to bet that sometime down the line, he's going to lose control over the program and all the antagonists from his games will be set loose. Bum, bum, bum. I can absolutely see that happening. Mimic says, Kane as Beetlejuice, Pomni as Lydia, and Ragatha as Delia, Delia. Blah, blah, blah. Amelia Bedelia. Delia. I can see that. Someone make some fan art of that. That actually sounds really good. Lover of Wolves. I'm going to guess that there's going to be a big gloopy monster like the Gloin Queen and the Fudge, because Kane likes these gloopy worm NPCs. There's a very good chance of that. Maybe one of the crazy sandworms from Beetlejuice will be represented then as the big bad here for this episode. There's no way out except through. We got to punch through. We got to punch through the abyss with all of the abstracted characters. Pomni, it's what we got to do. It's how we're going to break out. All right. So with that finally being seen and discussed, let's actually move on to the lesson as we hit nearly 2 hours here. Holy cow. Okay, then. So this lesson, as suggested by people over on our Discord server, and we will be looking at all of the suggestions that were given to us. We've already been talking about what we can do in terms of talking about tropes, talking about important relationships to the plot, and amongst other things, and we are planning on how we are going to address those particular topics and create hopefully helpful and meaningful lessons for you guys here. So this came over from our Discord server where this was suggested, how to build tension. And I'll go into that today also with a fair number of examples for us to go over and enjoy. Mike, how to build tension. Yes. Mimic, it'd be hilarious if they put a Samara Morgan reference in the episode. Ooh. We'll just have to see. So here we go. So how to build up the tension. So what is tension in a story? A story's tension is a combined force of personal and plot-focused stakes, growing conflict, and building emotion. So I just threw out a lot of stuff right there. Let's break that down even further. Stakes. Stakes are what the character stands to win or lose and the consequences of their actions. Conflict. This doesn't actually have to be one side versus the other. Conflict is the problem or issue that needs to be resolved by the end of the story. And then emotion. Emotion. This is not just what the characters are feeling, but it is also how you want your readers to feel as they go through the story. And this is conveyed through your use of tone and atmosphere. And if you want to get into tone and atmosphere, remember that we did a full lesson breakdown of that a couple weeks ago, which you can go see on our live stream playthrough list. So we definitely have already broken down that little bit there about tone and atmosphere. That helps to build the emotion for the characters, and the emotions that you want your audience to feel as they are reading your story or watching your story play out. So let's focus on the topic of conflict, or the elements of conflict when it comes to building up the tension. So when we want to talk here about conflict, let me quickly take a drink of water right here. Ooh, the toll that 2 hours takes on your voice. In your story, you introduce a problem for your characters to resolve. If there is no issue for your characters to resolve, you don't actually have a story. The only person that I have ever met in my whole life who says that they would actually be willing to read a book where nothing happens other than characters walking around and talking and doing little things of no consequence is my mom. And even then, the funny thing is that what she actually does mostly read and watch are things with conflict, because conflict actually makes the story interesting. And the conflict can be anything. The conflict can go from trying to end a great war, discovering who stole the cookies from the cookie jar, helping a lost pet get home, or those pets helping themselves get home. A character is trying to get their first kiss, go out on their first date, what have you, maybe stop an alien invasion. But whatever the problem is, you need to clearly state what that issue is, what that problem is, what the conflict is to your readers, and then show why it's important to your characters. This will already help you to establish the stakes and the emotions that your audience, that your readers will resonate with. However, stakes and emotions are still things that you will have to be aware of as you write. Don't just simply state, and this is the problem. Max really, really wanted to ask out Susie. And he was feeling so anxious and awkward. If he got this wrong, it would ruin the rest of his high school career. Now we're just going to focus on Max trying to ask out Susie without any reference to how he's feeling or what's at stake. Yeah, that's bad writing. But you do want to help to establish the stakes and the emotions, and this is best done through the introduction of the conflict that the characters are going to have to resolve. So make sure that you are building up all these things over time, but we're going to focus specifically on the element of conflict in building up tension. And this is because it's probably one of the easiest. Because once you have nailed down what the conflict is and how it's supposed to unfold, you will be better equipped to answer those questions of what are the stakes? What are the emotions? How are the characters dealing with all of this? And how can I best represent that in my story? How can I best show that and say that through my characters' actions and words? So Mevik says right here, imagine seeing a conflict sign on an actual highway you're driving on. Anyway, sorry, Lars. I know, no worries. It was a great little bit right there. I would love to see that. Actually, sometimes somewhere on a street. Warning: conflict ahead. Thank you, thank you. I guess I don't sure if I want to drive this way. Now then, here's how I want you to think about conflict in terms of building tension. Think of it like shooting an arrow. Now then, crazy. So I guess I'll share a crazy story right here in terms of tension. And this actually doesn't have to deal with an arrow. This has to deal with a gun. But I know what it's like to get shot at. This was really, really dumb. I once went to a bonfire party. Maybe not the best idea in the world ever, but hey, when you're in college and you want to hang out with people, you're sometimes going to go to places you probably shouldn't have. I went to a party I shouldn't have. And loads of guys and gals were out there with guns. And I'm totally fine with guns. However, these people were not treating those guns respectfully at all. It was a very dangerous situation. And these morons posted targets up next to people's cars and were sniping at these targets while people's cars were just a few feet away. That is stupid. And my truck was right next to those targets. So I go on out there. I'm like, hey, guys, stop. You're shooting at cars. Let me move my truck out of the way. And so I shout what I'd always been told by my grandfather, by scout leaders, by people I'd gone shooting with. When you're going down range, you tell people, I'm going down range. Put those guns down. Fingers off the trigger, safety's on, guns pointed to the ground, or placed somewhere where no one's fondling them. Safety, safety, safety. So I start going down range, and one idiot thought it would be a great idea to show off for some of the girls by shooting a bullet right over my ear. They all those guys thought it was a great laugh. Yeah, except imagine being the guy that a bullet just went past. So I got my truck, and I'm like, screw this, I'm leaving. And actually about a dozen people were like, get us out of here, get us out of here, get us out of here. So I packed tons of people into my truck and drove them back into town because plenty of people were getting freaked out. Now that's tension right there. You get there and you're all like, okay, this is a bonfire, woohoo, everything's great. Oh, people have guns. Okay, well, I'm okay with guns. Oh, people are not using these guns correctly. Ooh, that's bad. They're shooting at cars. One of them is being my truck. No, I'm getting out of here. Someone shoots at you. Tension. The tension is growing, and you finally get to the climax and the resolution of me leaving and saying sayonara, y'all. And I never again went to a party with or at least with most of those people. I was like, never again, because you people are nuts. That sounds awful. Yes, that was absolutely the worst. I'm paying attention to this, though. I had a Nerf war once. No, don't tell me there's a sacrifice taking place at that bonfire. There was a sacrifice. We were sacrificing old couches. That was what was being burnt out there. David says, sorry for being way too late on saying this. Was in the shower. I have to get this out of the Amazing Digital Circus. What if Kane reuses the Gummy Goo NPC 1 and causes Pomni, and because Pomni liked him, he makes him way too friendly and uncomfy. Oh, that's horrible. That'd be a horrible thing for Kane to do to Pomni and Gummy Goo. But I could see that happening. So pretty sure the cops would get involved in that case. Leaving was literally the best choice. Yes, leaving was the best choice. Thankfully, no one actually got hurt, but oh my gosh. Again, like I said, I never hung out with a load of those people ever again, because it's you literally shot over my ear. If you had missed in any kind of way, I could have had my brains blown out. You morons. So in a way, actually kind of taking the buildup of tension and transforming it, not from and trying to explain that without just simply being yes, it's like getting shot at. I want you to think about it more in the terms of firing an arrow, because ultimately firing an arrow, or loosing an arrow is the more proper way of saying it, is very much like firing a gun, where a gun by itself isn't actually going to cause any problems until someone starts messing with it. The same with a bow and arrow. A bow and an arrow on its own will not hurt a person until another person begins messing around with it. So think about tension in the same way. That the first thing you do, stringing the bow, getting the bow ready to fire any arrow, though the arrow has not yet been nocked. Stringing the bow is you introducing the crisis, the issue, the problem, the conflict, which again could be anything. Oh, someone stole a cookie from the cookie jar. Oh my gosh, a war is about to begin. Oh, did you hear that Jenny's been cheating on Chris? So the conflict has been introduced. But here's the thing. Does anyone care? Do you care that someone stole a cookie from a cookie jar? I mean, because you don't know what cookie that was. It could have been an oatmeal raisin cookie. You hate oatmeal raisin cookies, unless you're someone like me and I like oatmeal raisin cookies. Like, unless you have a reason to care about the cookie being stolen from the cookie jar, or from that war, or about that war happening, or that Jenny is cheating on Chris. Unless you have a reason to care about that, it's a conflict, it's an issue, but why should I care? It's a strung bow. Why should I care? This is then where you knock the arrow. Knocking the arrow is when you take the introduced issue and conflict and you make it relevant to the characters within your story. So, like, let's say, for instance, who stole the cookie from the cookie jar? Or that the characters in this case are a bunch of orphans who only get one treat a week, being the cookies. And now that someone has stolen a cookie from the cookie jar, the orphans won't be allowed to have the cookies. We need to figure out who the thief was, so that way the rest of us can have our cookies. This war. Oh, well, the war is what's going to ruin the life of the precious cinnamon roll character that you've been introduced to in the first chapter and whom you love so much. Or that Jenny is cheating on Chris. Oh, perish the thoughts. Oh, wait. I'm the one that Jenny is cheating on Chris with. So suddenly, there's investment in what is happening here. Knocking the arrow is basically you showing how this conflict is going to involve the characters, the main characters of your story. Then you pull back the arrow. Pulling back the arrow is the story's progression, how the conflict now grows in importance and in scope. This is where all of the story details begin to happen, and how the audience and how the characters become more and more invested in resolving this issue. And then the climax happens. This is loosing the arrow. You fire off the arrow. The consequences come, the great big moments, the resolution. And then the tension goes away, because now that the arrow has been loosed, the major tension is done. And you can even say, yeah, then we unstring the bow and that completely relieves the tension. But in any case, that's pretty much how it goes. So with that being said, then let's have a look at some examples. We're going to have a look at some movie examples to help better illustrate this progression, this idea of stringing the bow, knocking the arrow, pulling the arrow back, and then loosing it, releasing it, and thereby releasing the tension that you have built up. Omega says, never been to college myself due to the virus. Ooh. Well, you know what? And I will say this, as someone who has spent, 7 years in college, I can say this. College isn't for everyone. If someone wants to go to college, I say go on ahead. At least getting the feel for that college life is something else. Getting a degree can be really good, but you don't need a degree necessarily to succeed, all depending on what you want to do. But I definitely I'm someone who tells people that going to college is a good idea. And if you feel like going to college right now isn't right for you, that's okay. Because even when you're older, you can still go to college. I went to college with a lot of older folk, and that's absolutely fine. No problems with that whatsoever. Graduate school, however, is not for everyone. Only do graduate school if you absolutely need it for your chosen career and profession. If you don't do that, if you don't need a graduate degree, so your master's or a PhD, don't put yourself through that torture. Holy cow, graduate school was rough. Nick says, I love oatmeal raisin cookies. They're absolutely the bomb. And a little lovey-dovey around the cookie. ISO, this is very valuable for my horror story in the works. I'm glad. Hopefully this helps you out. Never went to college because money. Yes, and college just costs a lot of money. Unless you go to community college. That's a good way of saving some cash. Fabio, I hit the bell. I I do want to write stuff. Fantastic. You're at the right channel for this. TV account, tell that to my mom. It's practically mandatory in my country. Well, and that's the thing. There are definitely some places where college is kind of the way to go. And when that's the case, explore your options. You always have options. People are like, I don't have options. There are definitely options. You gotta go asking. You gotta go poking around for them. When I was teaching, I told my students this. You can, because people are like, I don't want to go to college because it costs so much money, but I have to go to college. I'm like, well, you don't have to go to college, but if you do go to college, you don't have to spend oodles and oodles of money. You can actually get through college fairly decently if you do it smart. And I told my students flat out, I'm like, look, guys, I did not graduate in the top of my class. In fact, actually, that was a huge problem when I was trying to get into certain universities, because I was not in the top 10% of my graduating class. I was just below. However, I went through that awkward, painful process of asking people about options, of looking into all these different kinds of websites and doing all of the different applications. And even though I was not in the top 10% of my graduating class, I did not have to pay a single cent to go to college my freshman year. I had to pay some money for sophomore, junior, and senior years, but I did not have to pay anything for my freshman year of college. And that comes from a guy who did not graduate in the top of his class, not even the top 10%. But it does require research. It does require spending time looking into all of this. So it can be helpful, but it's just, everyone has their, everyone has their own individual story. TV Account says, in my case, it didn't really help me in the long run, especially for someone on the spectrum. Well, yeah, my one of my nieces just entered college, and she's on the spectrum, and it's been an interesting challenge for her. I'm very proud of her for trying to get out of her bubble, for already trying to make some friends a few weeks on in, for sticking it out with one really interesting professor. I'll say that. So yeah, college is difficult. It's one of the reasons why I'll say it's not always for everyone. But again, everyone's individual situation will vary. So don't take my advice truly as gospel word when it comes to that. But just know that there are always options open to everyone. Fabio says, though what's bugging me most, even before learning to draw, is the design of one of two characters. Where you get into it if you talk about character design in narrative sense, right? So when it comes to character design visually, that's always something that we can talk about elsewhere. But when it comes to coming up with interesting character designs, I'll just say this, Fabio, that actually the most important thing before you really start thinking about what a character looks like is who that character ought to be. Now, that what I will say is this, is that in my own brain, as I visualize characters, I already see who they are right off the bat. Once a character comes to my mind, they just blossom into who they are. Clothing, the looks, the face, everything. I see it all. And so for me, it's never really been an issue of like, oh, this is what my character looks like. It's always more like, get the character's personality down. Because you can make a character look amazing or bonkers or as attractive as you want. And unless that character has any sort of depth to them personally, it doesn't matter what they look like, they will fall flat with the audience. So I always tell people, think first and foremost about who the character actually is. If you don't already have a vision of what they look like, and from building on who they are, you can then start creating what they look like. That's my advice. At least that's my very brief advice right here in this live stream. Let's see here. ISO says, yeah, I don't think I'm going to college. There's kind of just no point. I'm gonna make a TV account. You too? Exactly. You can go to college at any time, really. I'm not in college at the moment, but if I wanted, I can go and attend at the old age of 30 or something. College is really an optional thing. Yeah. And I had some classes as an undergrad with people who were 50 and 60 years old. So it's a never too late kind of a thing. Guy says, oh, I do know who they want to be. Okay, then based on their personality and based on the world that you are creating for them, Fabio. Start thinking about then what they could look like, or how they should function that will help them to fit within that world and to be their own unique standout individual. TV count. Sorry, I had a thing for my mom. What did I miss? Oh, just still talking about the creation of aesthetics for a character, and how in many cases for a lot of people college is optional. But again, depending on where you're at, that will change. For some people, college is the route to go, either because it's mandatory or because of their career. So let's have a look at our first example of a movie that will help us to understand the building of tension. Let's think about Aladdin. This is such a great movie. Now then, there's so many things within Aladdin that build up tension. For instance, if we talk about the romantic tension between Aladdin and Jasmine, that's its own thing. The tension of Aladdin having to be true to himself, which is actually the heart of the story, how he needs to be honest and be himself. That is the heart of Aladdin. But in terms of the general overall conflict that helps to drive all of this, it surrounds the genie's lamp. So, stringing the bow, the introduction of the conflict begins in the opening scenes as we're introduced to Jafar as he goes to the Cave of Wonders to get the lamp, which he fails. So then, okay, Jafar is after the lamp. Why does this matter? Well, the Cave of Wonders says, only one may enter here, one whose worth lies far within, the diamond in the rough. And so he's got to find the diamond in the rough. Who's the diamond in the rough? Oh, the diamond in the rough just happens to be Aladdin. So our main character who we're rooting for, who is in love with the princess, who is trying to survive as a street rat, his story seems so completely divorced from anything having to do with the magic lamp. Why she's knocked, Jafar sets his sights on Aladdin, and he has Aladdin arrested. And then he springs him from prison while pretending to be a prisoner himself. He takes Aladdin to the Cave of Wonders. Aladdin gets the lamp, is betrayed by Jafar. He releases the genie, becomes the genie's master, learns about the wishes, tries to use the wishes to help him to impress Jasmine while Jafar is trying to marry Jasmine to take the kingdom. Iago helps Jafar to steal the lamp. And then Jafar gets his 3 wishes. The conflict just keeps on growing. It gets bigger and bigger. We become more invested in Aladdin's journey. We want him to end up with Princess Jasmine. And so the conflict just continues to grow. The tension builds. And then the loosing of the arrow, the climax, is when Aladdin finally stands up to Jafar, decides to not run away, to be who he is, and guns for the palace, confronts Jafar, and manages to trick Jafar into using his last wish to turn himself into a genie and lock himself in his own lamp. Boom. And that is the release, that is the resolution to the main conflict of the story. And one of the neat things about the rest of Aladdin is how then Aladdin then has to show that he will stay true to himself by saying he won't marry Jasmine because he's not a prince. He's just a street rat. But then, because he loves Jasmine and the Sultan can see that, the Sultan then changes the law and says, no, you can now marry the princess. And of course, they get married. And thus, Aladdin's personal conflict and then also the conflict of romance has been resolved. So that's the progression right there within that particular movie. Aladdin was smart. Oh no, mic issues? Oh crap, no. Interesting. Well, I hope that it's not mic issues coming up again. Let me just quickly come on over here and check this out. Maybe things got a little bit wonky since I slapped the table. No, I'd say the mic is working actually pretty well over here on my end. Maybe it was me just slapping the table and then things got really wonky and weird there for a moment. So sorry about that. Then we'll hop on over to the next one right here. But let me quickly catch up with what you guys had to say right here. So yeah, Aladdin was smart. No, Aladdin was. Aladdin is such a great Disney protagonist because he's genuinely intelligent. in so many ways. And it's really fun to see him use those street smarts to really get around so many issues. Like Aladdin is one of the more proactive protagonists in the Disney lineup of heroes and heroines. One of the other very proactive heroes of Disney stories is actually Ariel from The Little Mermaid, because she goes and does what she wants to do. She is a very proactive protagonist, which is great to see. No, Fab says there was a big interrupting glitch earlier. It's fine now. Well, that's good to hear. I'm Omega. Well, I got a trio of characters mostly down personality-wise, but I'm trying to get a design down, mostly going for referencing various trios from things I like, with the Three Musketeers as a basis. Ooh, that's really cool, I'm Omega. I like that idea, basing around the Three Musketeers in that particular aesthetic. Please feel free to share more. Mimic, yeah, I love Aladdin so much. He's so smart, and Prince Jasmine is so badass. Same goes for Mulan. Yes. Oh my gosh. Why Disney? Why can't you just go back to that stuff? That was so good. Mulan, Aladdin and Jasmine, Ariel, Quasimodo. Yes, The Hunchback of Notre Dame is a way darker, more mature movie, but dang it, it's so beautiful with some great messages and all of that horror and craziness. And Esmeralda is a great heroine as well. Let's go back to that stuff, Disney. All right, so let's talk about the next example right here. I'm actually going to bet that most people haven't seen this movie. If you haven't, I highly recommend giving it at least one watch. It's pretty funny, and yes, it will make you feel uncomfortable the first time you watch it, because it is ridiculous. John Tucker Must Die. So this right here has a very interesting conflict to it. The stringing of the bow is the introduction that John Tucker, the guy that you see there in the foreground, he is dating multiple girls at the same time, lying to all of them about their dating status with him. And he's manipulating, and he's bad news. He's very charming, but he's bad news. Now, the knocking of the arrow comes with the main character, Kate. Kate is the new girl at school. She comes in and she sees how all of these girls are being used by John. But she's like, I'm the new girl. I'm a nerd. No one's going to listen to me. It's not my problem. Who cares? And so the knocking of the arrow is how she is made to care, because she, during PE, is put into the same volleyball team as the three girls that John is currently dating and manipulating. And when they find out that they're all dating John, Kate calls them out that, like, no, you guys are all stupid. You should have been able to see this. And now they're like, if you could see this, if you could see what we couldn't see, girl, you're now our best friend. And Kate's like, oh, no. And so the pulling back of the arrow for the rest of the movie is how Kate is now made to be the person who will destroy John Tucker. And it is hilarious because she and the girls keep on coming up with fun, interesting ways to absolutely destroy his reputation. It actually gets even crazier than Mean Girls. Because like in Mean Girls, when they tried to destroy Regina George, there's a couple of like really silly, petty things that they do to her. But in John Tucker Must Die, they go over the top to destroy this man. But he never gets defeated. He always finds some kind of way of turning around every horrible situation to make himself look even better than he is. And even more girls fall in love with him, and he starts dating even more girls. And it gets insane. And so it's then decided by the other girls that they're going to make John fall for Kate. But the problem is this: Kate is actually in love with John's younger brother. So the loosing of the arrow is when Kate's friends make this secret video that will finally expose John for everything that he is, using Kate after he has just confessed to Kate that he's in love with her. And it leads to absolutely all of this chaos. John is finally broken by the girl that he genuinely likes, by Kate. And so he renounces his cheating ways, but he still builds a harem. The movie ends with Kate getting together with John's younger brother, and then you see John in the background with a bunch of girls, and he's all like, I want to introduce you to each other. Now, I think we can really make this work out. And that's how the movie ends. It's such a ridiculous story. And it's actually really fun to watch. Again, it will make you feel uncomfortable if you've never watched it before, but it is downright hilarious. Let's see what you guys were putting here earlier. Fabio, 2 guys with issues on designing characters in groups, even if it's one of a duo for me. Mike, also, aren't most Disney movies musicals technically? Yes, they are. Fabio, if you did talk about what I said earlier, I missed it getting dinner. Sorry about that. Well, Fabio, I was just saying, again, when it comes to talking about character, when it comes to character design, first know who your characters are, the world that they're in, what part they're supposed to play in that world, and that helps you to begin to design what they should look like. I will quickly give an example, actually, from one of the stories I've been working on, where for at least for the looks for one of these characters. So I knew that she's going to be adventurous, she's eccentric, and she's going to have a whole bunch of neat little inventions that she carries on her. But how to actually make her look. And so since she is what they call a gear witch, I'm like, okay, so she needs to have a witchy aesthetic. So I want the nice witch's hat with a whole bunch of like little steampunk things going on here. And then like, okay, then so what could she use? Well, since gear witches need to have some sort of weapon on them to keep themselves safe, because a lot of people don't like gear witches, I was like, she's more of a pacifist than she is aggressive. So a good pacifistic weapon would be a staff. So boom, she's got a staff. Okay, now then, she's a wanderer, because most gear witches are wanderers. Okay, so she's going to look very travel-worn. So building it up from there about, since I know what this world is, and I know who she is, it allows me then to start adding these elements then onto her character, what she looks like, with the hat, with the travel-worn clothes, with the special staff that she uses, since she's more of a pacifist, and so forth. I'm Omega, the fork users from No Evil, the Bleep Squad from Deltarune, and Worm Drama from Goodbye Volcano High. The story being adapted is The Man with the Iron Mask, with the 4th guy based off of D'Artagnan. Okay, all right. I see that. Okay. I'll need to know a little bit more about where exactly. So is your story that you're writing I'm Omega, is it supposed to actually be set in Renaissance-ish France with the Musketeers, or is it more like that's the feel that you want for the characters? Mimic, even Cinderella has some baddie moments as well, especially in Cinderella 3. Disney, why have you been lacking lately, man? Yeah, because Disney's controlled by Bob Iger, who has no vision other than for himself. Mike, wow. Mimic, wow, this is way more drama and tea than a Lifetime reality TV show. Exactly. Iconic. The fact that the release date is tomorrow. LOL. So yeah, whenever it gets to it, when do I talk about the design thing? I don't want to get off topic. Leave it for whatever next stream. Or, well, Fabio, if you want to talk about, if we want to dive deeper into character design, I think that would be really fun to do for a dedicated live stream. And I will talk with Nate, one of the members of our harem, to see if I can get him on for that specific one, since he is definitely the guy within our party who has the setup to potentially do some live character design here on screen. So I will talk it over with Nate, and we'll see if we can possibly get that put together. I can't guarantee that would happen next week, but please keep an eye out for that. And like I said, I'll talk with Nate and see what we can put together. So there's John Tucker Must Die. This reminds me, Naif, of this tutorial on how to think when you draw comics on character design. I'll be the specifics of the design thing. I mean, all right. So Fabio, hit the bell. Thank you so much. All right. So moving on from John Tucker Must Die to Saving Private Ryan. So, stringing the boat. Now then, most people will immediately think that the conflict is World War II. The thing is that World War II is the setting. The conflict, the stringing of the boat for Saving Private Ryan, is when the soldiers are told that they need to go and save Private Ryan from the front lines. They need to get him, back home. The knocking of the arrow. Why this matters? Because to them, like in the movie, they're like, okay, we got to go save Private Ryan, bring him on home. Whoop-de-doo. And they just think it's going to be a simple task. The knocking of the arrow. Why this then becomes a big deal for them is because they learned that Private Ryan is lost somewhere with a forward unit way out in the French countryside. This is on D-Day. And most people would think, wait a second, how do you get out there already so far? During D-Day, thousands of soldiers were dropped all over the French countryside. And some of them just booked it. They booked it for as deep into France as they could go, which led to them getting isolated and getting into some really nasty firefights with the Germans. And so this means now for these soldiers that they have to go ahead of the main army without any major support. They have to go deep into France and try to find a forward unit that's somewhere out there. And so the pulling back of the arrow now, because now this is no longer just a simple snatch and grab job. This is now fully, we have to go out into enemy territory. Holy cow. And as their team battles their way through France, losing people as they go, finding Ryan eventually, and then him refusing to leave because he believes that they need to defend this little town from a German counterattack. Boom, like that's the ratcheting up of the conflict. And you just feel so bad for these men who have lost so much to find this one little private who now refuses to leave his position. And so they are locked in for the final battle. The loosing of the arrow is the final battle with the Germans, and Private Ryan being saved through tremendous sacrifice on the part of the heroes, and then being told, earn this. Earn that you have been given this lease on life by us and our sacrifices. And that's the release. And then we'll get to the final. Now I can get to the final example right here, which some of you are going to love. Saving the Titled Soldier. Wow, that's a shift. Yes, indeed. Going from John Tucker Must Die to Saving Private Ryan. Whew. But I wanted to have a balance of different things. I'm kind of a rom-com, your classic war movie, and of course a good Disney movie thrown there into the mix. So one of my favorite war movies, right there next to Hacksaw Ridge. Hacksaw Ridge is great. That's such a good movie. Fabio, it glitched before you cleared the throat and got better after you did. I'm going to make it more like a parallel world that looks a bit like the Cocktail of Baton Rouge, the Granite Home world from Kamen Rider Gav, Hylix, and Castletown from Deltarune. There's a king or leader who, all right, let's see the next part. World War II is the setting, and sometimes the setting gets all of it big. Yes. Sometimes the setting can seem to overshadow everything else. It's like watching the Indiana Jones movies and thinking that the real conflict is against the Nazis, but really the real conflict is against the evil historians and archaeologists. That's really where the conflict lies. All right, so let's get to one that people on this channel know and love. Let's talk about murder drones. So the stringing of the bow in murder drones is that you have disassembly drones who are sent to Copper 9 to kill the worker drones. Now then, why is this? Now, the interesting thing is that because the setting of murder drones is that they live in this post-apocalyptic place, it's just a daily fact of life that the disassembly drones are there to destroy them. That's, while that is definitely the conflict, ultimately it's more of the setting that introduces the real conflict, which is the fight against the Absolute Solver. So the knocking of the arrow for the Absolute Solver plotline is that even after Jay has been defeated, something evil has been unleashed on Copper 9. And we get to see the return of the Absolute Solver symbol, but this time it's now big. It's this eldritch abomination. What the heck is going on here? And now that the arrow's been knocked, and Uzi can no longer escape from this nightmare that she now finds herself in. This isn't just simply fighting against the disassembly drones and sticking it to those humans on Earth. No, this is now a fight against something unknown. And so now the pulling back of the arrow for the rest of Murder Drones along this particular conflict is how Uzi now has to uncover the secrets of Absolute Solver, including dealing with Doll, her own transformation into a disassembly drone kind of creature, going to the Cabin Fever labs, finding her mom, all of this. This is the building up of the tension as we learn more and more and begin to realize this is a Lovecraftian horror. This is huge. This is big. Holy cow. What the heck is Absolute Solver? Who is Absolute Solver? Why? How are you going to win this? The loosing of the arrow is the final fight, and specifically when Uzi eats Absolute Solver. Absolute Solver is defeated. It seems like everything is great and wonderful. But as we've talked about before, and as is very clear in the very last shot of the series, things aren't exactly what they seem. The tension springs back because we see that Absolute Solver has reappeared in Uzi in whatever way you wish to interpret that the ending has actually unfolded. Now, the reason why I bring up this specific example is because it still follows the pattern that I've set out for you of stringing the bow, knocking the arrow, pulling back the arrow, loosing the arrow. However, stories don't always have to end in a way where the tension has been completely released. Now then, I bring this up because there are some authors out there who think, oh, if I never release the tension, isn't that just wonderful? It leaves the audience feeling all, meh. No, that's actually disappointing to the audience. The audience needs catharsis. What that means is that we need to feel like this adventure was worth it. There needs to be some kind of resolution. There needs to be some kind of climax to all of this conflict in order for us to feel like we didn't waste our time. So for Murder Drones gets away with bringing back that tension because by the end of episode 8, even though there are definitely things we can quibble about in terms of if the lore actually really cashed in on what we were hoping for, amongst other things, the fact of the matter is that Absolute Solver has been defeated. Uzi won in some way or another. And depending on how you character arc. And so the bend and break the and say, they may have, did they really introduce you to a little cliffhanger that may never be followed up on? The horror stories are weird because they can in their own unique ways. Bring back the tension under certain circumstances, but do not release some kind of conflict resolution, catharsis. Lose your reader because what to and instance, like I'll take a moment to dunk on something. The first season feels like an absolute letdown. No catharsis for why we like even being made the rings say even though that's completely non-canonical. The fact of the matter remains is that even after the rings have been finished, haven't actually saved anyone yet. All of the big problems introduced in one solved. In fact, they've only been made worse. And now the writers would say, but we will resolve these later on. Oh, you need to get some sort of resolution after 8+ of investment. When watching the Fellowship of the Ring ends with the Fellowship breaking and all going their separate way, Gandalf is apparently, Boromir is most definitely dead. Feel good, and we feel good because amazing, beautiful moment where he's there at the shores of the river Anduin, and he is having the ring out in his hand, and he's playing they have with Gandalf, where it had never come to me. I wish that none of this then replies memory. So do all who live to see such time. All you have to do is what to do with the time that is given to you. And so Frodo decides to go away, and he confronts them. He saves Sam, and two of them go off on the door. Even though the Fellowship is broken, the has not failed. And works in Sam and Pippin. So the problems haven't been fully resolved. A catharsis. There's been a resolution, and the story can being dropped. So there you go. Oh no. Take a breath of water. All right. Let me. Oh my God. Is it all robot-y again? Dang it. So let's hear. Sorry, guys. Yes, I got very passionate, and so I missed out. You guys are saying I had blocked out. Dang it. Dang it, dang it. Well, I guess the funny games couldn't always go on forever. Almost 3 hours. You gotta be kidding me. Man, why am I cutting out? Why am I cutting out? A second here. Let's. I probably do. Might really be a good investment point. Okay, then let's see here. Back through. Oh my gosh, it's even more staticky now. This is almost how like listening to Spamton G. Spamton in real life. How true. Now, say to answer your question right there, could I stream with the camera? Do that. However, I actually tried doing that earlier with this laptop, and it didn't work. So it didn't work. Well, then just over here to the writing challenge. It's holy dang, almost 3 hours, and now robotic nonsense. Okay, then. So here's what I want to do for you guys is writing to follow the pattern conflicts. think about what your conflict is, string your bow, the arrow, making the now your characters, pull it back, the conflict continues to grow and become more and more relevant, how the characters grow with the issues, and then release, which is the for that particular conflict. I want you to, for stories, is I want you to write that. I want you to write out this for your story conflicts, and this will be excellent you to understand how your can grow through the conflict, specific moments, characters, tell the emotions and the state. So we'll begin to wrap there. So sorry, guys, I got so whack right there with the tangent I was, and then of the ring, and everyone just went to poo right there. I apologize for that happening. We'll see about getting a better mic, and hopefully that might help in the near future. Taking that you're finding this. Yeah, Mimic, yeah, I see. It's just keeps on cutting me off and not letting me properly finish my sentences. Okay, so Zoom classes at the start of the 2020s. Hey, I taught those Zoom classes. This is exactly what it's. I'm then going to, since issues right there, that's the ring lesson. And hey, we've managed it. Start up to actually making it work. We've covered Deltarune, amazing digital circus, episode 3, and there is I do apologize for all the try to get this so that way this isn't a problem in the future. So much for being here, for being this, and we'll see you guys. A wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful morning, wherever. And until the next time, choose.